His mind almost began to question his own sanity and the realism of the situation which he had found himself in. Chapter 14. The Unexpected and Unprovoked Verbal Attack. A brightly clad figure sprang from behind the bush, leaping high in the air and landing in front of the party of three, making no sound as its feet touched the ground. The individual landed so softly that Woody wondered how it was possible to land in such a quiet manner, hardly making a sound after such a bounding leap. He looked down at the splendid footwear which had allowed the new character to arrive with unheard softness. Woody's eyes widened when he saw what was responsible for the absence of sound. "Surely not," he announced, as he looked down at the footwear. His excitement suggested that he should crouch down in order to inspect the footwear, which made his already tatty plimsolls descend deeper into the realms of embarrassment than where they already resided. "Well, hello there," said the figure, in a voice which suggested that he was a friendly sort rather than an adversary who meant them harm. "I must say you're looking very dapper," Fair responded, with a compliment as opposed to a greeting, and then asked, "New outfit?" "It's not merely an outfit," said the character, sounding most offended at it being referred to as something that made it sound quite ordinary, so he put fate straight on that matter. "It's a guise, one of the many that I possess, and yes, it is new." The outfit, rather the guise, which the new arrival wore, was an all-in-one affair which seemed to possess no buttons, zips, or fasteners of any kind. Its colour was a multitude of varying shades, with each one seeping out of the previous one and blending into the next. The properties of the material allowed it to change depending on the mood of the wearer, so that one patch which had been blue became violet, only to change a moment later into purple. The outfit continued to alter iridescently until the entire outfit possessed none of its original colours. While Evan watched the kaleidoscopic outfit changing colours and Woody continued inspecting the footwear, Fate and the character conversed some more. "I wondered how long it would be before you put in an appearance. Go on then, do your worst, or your best, whichever it is that you do." "You know each other?" inquired Evan, now having a feeling that they were not exactly friends. "You know each other?" repeated the colourful character, mimicking the way in which Evan spoke. "You know each other?" he mocked again. Evan could not believe the unexpected and unprovoked verbal attack which had just been delivered to him. He frowned at his antagonist. "You can take that look off your face before I knock it off," warned the colourful adversary. What? Thought Evan, contradicting his earlier diagnosis that the character was somebody who nobody should have any reason to be mindful of. He wondered how he had managed to become involved in a confrontation with the stranger so quickly. Then, without warning, the provoker in a fancy guise gave Evan a push, just for good measure. Evan felt his hand close and tighten into a fist. The character taunted and jibed Evan some more, trying to provoke him into action, and he then poked Evan twice in his chest. "I'm warning you, don't tempt me," Evan threatened, his resistance struggling to cope with the increase in harassment. It was at this point that Fate leaned forward and, turning his head to look at Evan, he said, "That's what he does. That's who he is." "He's not grasped the concept yet, thickhead," said the figure, still trying to tempt Evan into making a move. The only rationale preventing Evan from at least grabbing hold of his antagonist was the presence of the boy. Fate realised that Evan's fury was beginning to blind him to what should have been obvious by now, the identity of the individual standing before him. Fate leaned in towards Evan and spoke into his ear. "It's temptation, doing his job, and doing it quite well, I might add." "Eh?" he asked, wondering whether Fate meant to say what he had said, or whether he himself had heard correctly. "It's who?" "Temptation," repeated Fate. Evan smiled, half at his own blind stupidity, and half at the amazing adventure which he was on, along with the astonishing characters which he was already encountering. He began to wonder about what or who the rest of the expedition would bring forth. His mind almost began to question his own sanity and the realism of the situation which he had found himself in. He half-heartedly found himself wondering if he was still at home, in bed, dreaming. He then realised that although the people around him were bizarre, they were in actual fact tangible, and that everything was constant and not flitting about as it does in dreams. The only exception to the unwavering environment was Temptation's outfit. Evan was beginning to realise that this journey was not going to be like any previous trip or outing which he had ever been on. This was going to be a learning experience, and that everybody whom he would meet would be trying to teach him something. He would, he decided, try to read the situation better in future before reacting. After getting to grips with Fate's explanation as to Temptation's identity, he then asked, "Why is he trying to tempt me into hitting?" "So he can discredit you in front of the boy, thus making it easier to manipulate him." Evan nodded as he began to understand the role of the enticer. Woody was still down on one knee, completely oblivious to the taunting that was going on above him, occupied in the task of examining the footwear that had allowed Temptation to jump so high and land so softly. Fate continued with the explanation. "If he can discredit you, he can take away your power, therefore making it easier for him to gain control over you as a boy, thus allowing him to control you a lot easier as an adult." Still, Temptation kept on taunting Evan. "How am I supposed to resist that?" Evan asked, referring to Temptation and his jibes. "Well, as you have seen just now and on numerous occasions throughout your life, it is not always easy. It is easy though once someone whom you respect takes the time to teach you. One of the ways is to simply turn around, just turn your back on him." "Really?" asked Evan. Fate nodded, and so Evan followed the instruction. And when they did, Evan found that they could no longer hear Temptation and his words of provocation. "You're right, it is easy, isn't it?" "Yes, it is. Once you've been taught how to do it, resistance is easy and temptation is ineffective. If you'd have learned that when you were younger, the age that the boy is now, then things would have been very different. Unfortunately, if there is no one in your life when you are growing up to teach you such things and to set good examples for you to learn from..." The boy!" exclaimed Evan suddenly, when he realised that although he could no longer hear Temptation's voice, he could no longer hear Woody's voice chatting about the trainers. They turned around quickly, fearful for the welfare of the youngster, but they could see he was still crouched down, admiring the fancy footwork of Temptation. They could see what was on Evan's mind, namely to send Temptation on his way. But he suggested that they observe the boy and see how he handled the situation. "Do you like them?" Temptation asked, lifting his foot high enough for Woody to see the sole that was covered with a dozen or more nodules, which showed the textures of both rubber and sponge. Wow, yes, they're fantastic, Woody enthused, while thinking how impressed Scooby and his brother would be if they saw him in a pair of those bad boys. Each nodule was encased with its own protective suction pad that kept it safe from falling out, but allowed it the freedom to move around. Touch them if you like, Temptation invited the boy, who ran his hand along the sole. To his surprise, the nodules turned and rolled around, and when he pressed one individually, it moved up inside the pad and stayed there for a moment before falling back down to the same level as the others. Great trainers, mister. Are they? Woody felt unworthy to pronounce the name of the designer footwear. Soundbreakers, Temptation informed him, turning his foot to reveal the two words embossed down the side. Woody was delighted that he had met someone who owned a pair of the named trainers, which were as yet an unacquirable accessory back in Mortalitania. Would you like a pair? Would I ever? Woody cried out enthusiastically, and then added in a softer tone, I've got no money though. And then he felt poor again, and then he hated his poverty, and then, from within his heart, he cursed his forsaken father. Who said anything about money? I'll give you a pair, Temptation promised him, with an air of sincerity. Really? For free? Asked Woody, not really believing that he was worthy of such kindness. The prospect of shedding his tatty plimsolls, though, in favour of some new dynamic soundbreakers, was beginning to convince his disbelief that maybe, just maybe, this one time he could be worthy. I've got a brand new pair you can have, just down there a short distance, and Temptation pointed down the road. Come on, my friend, he said, holding his hand out to tempt young Woody. Let's go. Ordinarily, the youngster's trust and naivety may well have allowed him to go with Temptation without thinking too deeply about the consequences, but he could see that his older self and fate were both looking at him, so he told Temptation that he should really stay with his two friends. Evan smiled at fate, pleased that the youngster had resisted temptation, but fate thought it best to wait a moment before returning the smile. That's all right, if you don't want them, I understand, said Temptation, wiggling his foot at the boy as though to say, look what you're missing, showing him that trainers that could have been his. Temptation continued talking to Woody, but as he did, his spoken words began to change the lines of a poem, the words of which started to rhyme, and somewhere, from some unseen orchestra, seductive music filled the air, and Temptation's words began to flow melodically. If you want some new soundbreakers, then come along with me. I'm giving them to you. They're absolutely free. They're not second-hand. In fact, they are brand new. You don't have to have them. It's entirely up to you. You can keep what you've got, those tatty old plimsolls, with only one real lace and a sole full of holes. The toe cap's coming off. They're there, such a shame. They let out the warmth and they let in the rain. When you're wearing soundbreakers, there is so much more to see, as you can climb quite effortless to the top of every tree. When wearing soundbreakers, you can jump down to the ground from as high up as you like and never make a sound. With the many magic nodules that they contain underneath, you'll find you can run faster than a windswept leaf. The suction pads will allow you to stick to the steepest, slimiest wall as easily as any spider with no trouble at all. They will keep your feet dry in the winter and in the summertime keep them cool. If you do turn down this offer, then you must be quite the fool. So come on down the road. Come on, follow me. to get your sound breakers, no charge, because they're absolutely free. Temptation was dancing down the road, waving his hands above his head, closely followed by Woody, whose feet had taken on a will of their own. Even his words had begun to join in with the merriment, singing away to the music. Ad-libbing as he went along, the boy sang something like this. Sound breakers, there's no charge to me. At last from my old plimsolls, I'm finally going to be free. Sound breakers, there's no charge to me. How very lucky can one 11-year-old boy be? Now, for someone who did not normally sing and had never danced outside the privacy of his own bedroom before, Woody had become quite the little entertainer. Everyone was mesmerised and had subconsciously begun to tap one of his own feet as he helplessly watched his young self and temptation disappear around the bend in the road. As soon as they were out of sight, the music stopped, the singing ceased, and Evan's foot became still. Panic set in as he came round from his trance-inducing music, and he chased after the boy to rescue him from his enticer. He reached Woody in a few short seconds, closely followed by Fate. Temptation was handing the youngster a white cardboard box with the words "Sound Breakers" printed on the lid, saying as he did, "These are for you, my friend." "Thank you," said Woody. "Thank you," said Evan as he grabbed the box in mid-transit. "Now, if there's nothing more, clear off if you know what's good for you." Temptation, though, was not giving up that easily, and he started to sing again, and once more music filled the air. Evan grabbed hold of the boy and spun him around from Temptation, warning him that he must not turn back around or even look over his shoulder at the man in a multicoloured outfit. Then he and Fate turned their backs as well, so none of them could see or hear the enticer. They waited a while for the music to fade, and then gradually, apprehensively, they all slowly turned around. Temptation was gone.